Hello friends, in this lecture we are going to study the transit effect of Saturn on the native. Now this transit analysis is with respect to the navamsa signs or the planets in the navamsa. Okay, so let's suppose Saturn is transiting over the okay, let's take it other way around. Okay, suppose you want to study uh, the Saturn transit when something bad is going to happen related to your mother, related to your cars, vehicles, houses. Okay, so basically I'm talking about the fourth house. So to understand this, one has to look at the sign, the house which is eighth from this fourth house. So when we count eight from the fourth house, you will come to the 11th house. Okay, so look at the Navansha position of the 11th Lord in your chart. Okay, so basically find out the 11th Lord and see where it is posited in the Navansha. So when Saturn transits over that particular sign, at that time some troublesome thing will happen related to fourth house or related to your mother, related to your property, house and vehicle. So this is a bad transit since Saturn is transiting, so it's a kind of bad prediction. But one can be one can be this I have found pretty accurate many times. Okay, so when Saturn transits, based on the transit of Saturn, this is not only about the fourth house. One can apply it to any house. Okay, so let's say third house. Third house is for co-borns, for brothers, sisters. So when find out the house which is eighth from the third house. So from the eighth, it is the 10th house. Okay. So the 10th house Lord, where it is posited in Navansha, that one has to find out. And when Saturn transits over the 10th Lord in the Navansha, that time something bad happens with the co-borns, with the siblings, because of Saturn transit. Okay. So likewise, one can apply it to all the all the 12 signs, all the 12 uh, you can say all the significations of all these 12 houses one can apply based on the Saturn transit. Okay. Now in the example, we'll see how it is applied in each and every house with respect to each and every house. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So let us look at the this particular rule uh, for predicting the transit results of Saturn. Okay. So one has to look at the D1 chart as well as D9 chart to predict successfully from this rule. So let's suppose we are going to take into account each and every house. Okay, so let us begin with the first house. Okay, so let's say it is Libra Lagna, and the first house is here Libra, and Saturn and the Lord of the first house is Venus, and Venus is placed in the Aquarius Navamsa. Okay, so clear? Okay, so first house is Libra, and the Lord of Libra is Venus, which is placed in the Aquarius Navamsa. So what you have to take into account is the transit of Saturn over Venus. Okay, so when Saturn is transiting over the Lord of first house, then what can happen? So first let us see what does first house represent. Here one has to take into account the eighth house relationship. Okay, so let me tell you what I mean. Okay, so here you see the first house is actually eighth house from the sixth. Okay, so here the sixth house is Pisces. So from Pisces it is the eighth house, and Venus becomes the lord of eighth house corresponding to Pisces. So what does Pisces represent? Pisces is the sixth house, and sixth house stands for the maternal uncle, all the maternal relationships, all the enemies. Okay, so when Saturn is transiting through over the Lord of First House in the Navansha, at that time it is actually giving, um you can say it is giving problems to the sixth house related matters. Like there will be problems related to enemies. There could be problems because of maternal uncles, maternal mother side of relatives, or there could be problem from maternal uncle, or there could be problem to the maternal uncle. So both is possible. Okay, so this is the way of analyzing this Saturn transit here. Okay, so let me repeat. So when you are taking into account the transit of Saturn over the Lord of First House, then one has to take into account the lordship of First House with respect to it being the eighth lord from the sixth house. So the sixth house significators will be hampered during this transit. So sixth house stands for the maternal uncle and enemies and all those things. So that will be hampered in the transit when Saturn is transiting over the Lord of First House. Okay, so that's for the first house result. Now let us take into account the second house. So let's suppose again it is a Libra ascendant. So the second house becomes Scorpio, and Lord of Scorpio is Mars. Let's suppose Mars is here in the Scorpio, and Mars is again, let's say, in Aries. Okay, in Navansha. This is a Navansha chart. This is a Rashi chart. Okay, so this is a second house, and second house is actually eighth from the seventh house. Okay, you count eight from the seventh house, you reach the second house. So when Saturn is transiting over Lord of second house, it is actually going to damage, going to cause problem to the seventh house. So when Saturn is transiting over this period, okay, when Saturn is transiting in Aries, because Aries contains the second lord, at that time the significance related to seventh house will be hampered. So it could be problem because of the seventh house, because of wife or family of wife could also have problem during this time. Okay, so that's about the second house. Second house. Okay, now let's see the results related to third house. So third house stands for co-born, but we are not looking into the third house actually. Let's again take the ascendant as Libra. The third house becomes Sagittarius, and let's say Jupiter is here in Cancer, and in Navansha it is here in Gemini. Okay, now look at the third house. Third house is Sagittarius, and look from where it is eighth house. So it is eighth from Taurus. And what is Taurus? Taurus is actually the eighth house in your chart, in your Rashi chart. In your chart, eighth house stands for uh, death. It stands for fear. It stands for all the health problems. Okay. So when Saturn is transiting over Lord of third house, your health is going to be impacted. Okay. There will be impact on health when this transit happens. Okay. So basically, when Saturn is transiting in the D9 chart over Virgo, over Gemini, at that time there will be problems related to health, or you will be having fear for a lot of things. Okay, so basically all the eighth house related significations will be affected. It can also mean the inherited properties, which is signified by eighth house. So there could be loss of inherited property or some dispute in the inherited property. Let's see the fourth house. So fourth house, again let's again take the ascendant as Libra. So the fourth house becomes Capricorn, and Lord of Capricorn is, let's say, in Taurus. Okay, this is a D9 chart. This is a D1 chart. So look at this fourth house. This fourth house is actually 8 from the ninth house. Okay, and we all know this ninth house stands for father, or it stands for your boss in office. Okay, so your father, your boss, your guru, mm, all these things is represented by the ninth house. And when Saturn is transiting over fourth house, it is actually destroying these these significations. So when Saturn is transiting over Saturn in the D9 chart in Taurus, that time there will be problem to fathers. There could be problem with to the boss, to your guru, to your seniors, or to your religious beliefs. Okay, so that can be predicted based on the transit. So you can take all the significations of ninth house. Let us take the fifth house. Again, this is a D1 chart. This is a D9 chart. Ascendant is the Libra, and the fifth house is Aquarius, and Lord of Aquarius Saturn is again there in Taurus. So when Saturn is transiting over the fifth house, it is actually look at the fifth house. It is 8th from the 10th house. Okay, it's 8th from the 10th house. So all the 10th house related significations will be affected. So what is the 10th house related significations? First, your job. There could be problem to your job. There could be problem for government. Okay, or your position in society. So all these things could get affected when Saturn is transiting this um, over this Taurus. Okay, that is the Lord of fifth house. Now let us take the sixth house. Again, Libra is the ascendant, and this is a D1 chart, and sixth house is here in Pisces. Now look at the sixth house with respect to this house, which is Leo. Okay, so from the 11th house, you see it is actually 8. So all the significations of 11th house will be affected. So what is the 11th house? 11th house stands for your paternal uncle and paternal aunt. Okay, paternal uncle and paternal. Now you'll ask me why paternal uncle and paternal aunt. See, the 11th house is actually third from the ninth house. Okay, and ninth house stands for your father, and third from your father is actually the co-born or siblings of your father. So 11th house stands for your paternal relatives like paternal uncle, paternal aunt. 11th house also stands for the gains and basically accumulation of wealth. So accumulation of wealth is also affected when this transit happens. So when is that transit? So sixth lord is sixth house is Pisces. Lord of sixth house is Jupiter. Let's say Jupiter is here in Aquarius. So when Saturn is transiting over Jupiter, that time these relatives like paternal uncle, paternal aunt, or accumulation of wealth, your friends, okay, uh, all these significations will get affected. Let us look at the seventh house. So again, take it as Libra ascendant. This is a D1 chart. This is a D9 chart. Seventh house is Aries. Okay, and this seventh house is actually 8th from the 12th house. Okay, so 12th house and 7th house. So Lord of 7th house is Mars. Let's say Mars is here in Libra. So when Saturn is transiting over Mars, that time all the significations of 12th house will get affected. Okay, so what is the signification of 12th house? 12th house signifies two things. One is it is ninth from the 4th house. So 4th house is your mother. Ninth from 4th is actually father of your mother. Okay, uh, in Hindi we call it Nanaji, and it also means the mother of your father. So it is basically 4th from the ninth house. So ninth house is your father, 4th from that house is 12th house. So your father's mother or your mother's father. Okay, so these two relatives, they are signified by the 12th house. There could be unnecessary expenses also, unnecessary travels also during this time. So basically all the 12th house related significations, relatives, they will be affected during this transit. Now let us look at the eighth house. Eighth house is actually what? Okay, this is a D1 chart, and this is the eighth house. Eighth house is eighth from the ascendant. Okay, so it boils down to you. So your image, rather, you will have bodily afflictions during this time. Okay, so let's say eighth house, eighth house lord is Venus, and in the D9 chart, let's say Venus is here in Aries. So when Saturn is transiting over Venus, your first house is getting affected. And what is the first house? First house is your body itself, your ego. Okay, so these two things will get affected. You will frequently see your ego getting hurt by other people. You'll see bodily afflictions, health problems during this time. Okay, now let us look at the ninth house. So ninth house is actually eighth from the second house. This is ascendant. This is the ninth house, and ninth house is actually eighth from the second house. So second house is going to get affected. So ninth house lord is Gemini. Lord of Gemini is Mercury, and let's say Mercury is here in Cancer. So when Saturn is transiting over Mercury, that time significations of second house will be affected. So your wealth will be affected, your family will be affected, your speech will be affected, your food that you get, that will get affected. Okay, even family also, your family, you can say the comfort coming from family, that is also afflicted when Saturn transits over Mercury. Okay, that's a D9 chart. This is a D1 chart. Now let us look at the 10th house. In the 10th house, so again take Libra as the ascendant. The 10th house is Cancer, and 10th house Lord Moon. Let us say Moon is here in the D9 chart in the Aries. So when Saturn transits over this sign, that time there will be affliction. Now see which sign is actually the eighth from the 10th house. Okay, so it is actually eighth from the third house, and third house stands for your siblings. Okay, so when Saturn is transiting over Moon, your siblings, your co-born will be affected. Okay, there will be problem to your brothers, sisters. Now let us look at the next house, which is the 11th house. Okay, again take Libra ascendant, and 11th house here is Leo. Let's say Lord of Leo's Sun is there in the D9 chart in the Aquarius. So when Saturn is transiting over Sun, it is going to affect which one? This 11th house is actually 8th from 4th house, and 4th house stands for mother. It stands for mother, it stands for vehicle, it stands for comfort, it stands for house. Okay, vehicle. So all these significations will get affected when Saturn transits over Sun. Now let us take the last one, which is the 12th house. So when, let us take the ascendant as Libra in the D1 chart. So 12th house is Virgo, and Lord of Virgo is Mercury. Let's say Mercury is here in Gemini in the D9 chart. So when Saturn transits over Mercury, that time it is 8th from the 5th house, and 5th house we all know stands for kids. So your children will be affected when Saturn transits over Mercury. Okay, in case you don't have children, you have followers, you are a guru and having a lot of followings, then your followings will be afflicted when Saturn transits over Mercury. Okay, so hope I explained it in detail. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, let's apply it in your chart and see it works miraculously. Thank you very much.